Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Sales. If you're looking for actionable insights and real-world tools to turbocharge your sales starting tomorrow, well, you're in the right place. Your host, Kay Miller, earned the affectionate nickname Muffler Mama when she sold more automotive mufflers than anyone else in the world. In this podcast, Kay will talk to another superstar woman in sales as they reveal uncopyable strategies you can use to rack up more leads, snag dream clients, and take your sales numbers through the roof. Stay tuned and get ready to make more sales and how about this? More money.
Today, I'm here with Meredith Elliott Powell. And Meredith is an award-winning keynote speaker, business growth strategist, and author of 9 books, including Thrive, Turning Uncertainty into Competitive Advantage. Meredith is also a fairly new inducted member of the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame. That's a very big deal. And a top 100 LinkedIn sales influencer. Meredith, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, Kay.
Well, I'm very excited to have you. And as we were just talking about, we have the same publisher, Sound Wisdom, an awesome team of people. And we were just talking to John Martin, and he said, you have got to have Meredith on your podcast. So that's great. We have 4 of our Uncopyable books on with Sound Wisdom. And I know you've got a couple new ones. How many books do you have with Sound Wisdom?
I've got, I think I have 3 with Sound Wisdom, and I've got 2 more coming out this year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're a busy lady. So that's good. Well, I just read, and if you're watching on video, you can see I have got a copy of Meredith's book, Thrive. And boy, it's turning uncertainty into a competitive advantage. And wow, pandemic. That's a little bit of uncertainty, right?
Just a little bit of I almost feel like the pandemic looks easy compared to the level of uncertainty we've been facing in the last few years.
Well, tell me, why do you say that?
So it was interesting. I actually started studying and researching uncertainty back in 2016 when we weren't really feeling very much. I mean, the marketplace was really stable. Everything was growing, but every single client I was talking to was responding the same way. They were saying, we're having our best year on record, but this uncertainty. And I just thought, why does uncertainty always have to be a negative? And why does it always have to be a bad thing? And what could happen? Like, what could you accomplish if you believed that uncertainty always led to opportunity? Even when you didn't like what was happening, what could you do? What could you accomplish if you believed that good was on the other side? And that just took me down an unbelievable path of really studying organizations, people, leaders who have turned some of the worst disruptions into unbelievable opportunity. I started on the business side, took it over to the personal side, because luckily for us, disruption happens everywhere.
Well, how fortuitous that you started thinking about this in 2016. Yeah. And like you said, we've all experienced uncertainty, and I really like your take on that. And I think we realize that if we're reminded by somebody like you in your book that uncertainty really can be a good thing, and it can be a motivator. And also, there's one thing that is certain, and that's uncertainty, right?
Absolutely. I think that I read a statistic the other day that said the pace of change in the last 5 years has increased to about, I think, 143 or 183%. We are moving so fast right now. And the thing is, change is going to happen. And a lot of the times you're not going to like the change. I mean, think about the fact that we're recording this at a time when it's an election year here in the United States. 50% of the people are going to be angry and very upset about the change, and 50% are going to be excited. But 100% can't do anything about that change. And you've got to embrace it. You've got to use it. And there's always opportunity in uncertainty.
Right. Like you said, this is another time where we are experiencing a lot of change, but even in politics, I don't want to get into politics for sure, but I studied poli-sci in college, and boy, it was such a different world back then. It wasn't as divided. It was a lot friendlier, collaborative, but hey, it is what it is. And so now that's why we need people like you and me. I'll put myself in that category to help people deal with change and stay true through all of that to their vision. And I know you've got a 9-step formula in your book, Thrive, which I really liked the way you broke it down into really clear 9 different areas that you can work on. And like you said, not only professionally, but personally. And for almost everybody, your professional and personal lives are integrated in some way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny. I finished the book and I had it all ready to send to Sound Wisdom. And the book is based on 9 companies that I studied that have been in business for over 250 years. And if you just take a moment and think about that, they've come through world wars, economic depression, 2 pandemics. And I wanted to know why those companies found opportunity in some of the biggest disruptions we've ever experienced. But when I finished the book, I had it all wrapped to go to Sound Wisdom. And I thought, the Great Depression didn't end at 5 o'clock. I mean, these people then had to go home and deal with their personal lives. And so I wrote a second book out of that called Mentally Fit, Competitively Strong, and Powerfully Resilient. And that's all about how to apply the formula to your personal life. But it is based off not something that I think people ought to do. It's based on real world research and history and examples of people who have been through far bigger challenges than we have ever seen.
Yeah. And being part of the National Speakers Association, we have the opportunity to see some incredible stories of people overcoming things. And actually, I'm going to be interviewing Liz Green later today.
Yeah.
And so
she's fabulous.
Incredible story. Stay tuned for that. She had a heart attack while she was pregnant with twins. But you also have some really interesting stories, things that challenged you in the past, that you had to be resilient and you came out better on the other side. So do you want to share any of that little personal behind the scenes for you?
I put this one in the beginning of the book, and then got another one that's a little more intimate as it goes into the personal side of it. But in the beginning of Thrive, I talk about the fact that I live in the mountains of Western North Carolina. If you're watching this on video, I literally live in a log cabin, and you would never think we would have a flood here. But as some tornadoes came off the South Carolina coast and spun up into North Carolina, my husband's dental practice completely flooded out. He had just celebrated an anniversary. We were looking at retirement, and it completely destroyed his dental practice. Now, to give you some perspective, when my husband started dental practice, he borrowed $12,000 to go into practice. And now
that must have been a while ago.
And now we were looking at over $1 million to get back in, and $1 million at a time in your life when your kids are educated, your house is paid off, you can see the horizon of retirement. And we really wrestled with it, but we pulled the trigger, and as luck would have it, a second tornado came through and we got flooded again.
Kidding
me.
But
here's the kicker, is that we chose to see it as opportunity. And we ended up partnering with a new piece of equipment that had entered the dental world. It was high-tech dentistry. My husband he's retired now. He's probably made more money in the last 10 years he practiced than close to in the first 20. And it was because we kept our eye on the ball. I also talk about, in the personal side of it, by the time I was 36 years old, and I'm well on the back of that now, 6 male members of my family, including my first husband, had all died of alcohol addiction. And I had every negative that went with that. I believed that there was something wrong with me. We had the anger, we had the abuse. But again, I look at my life now, I look back on it now, and I have found the opportunity in that. When I made the decision that most people weren't strong enough to decide to survive what I had survived, I found the opportunity in what seemed like a dismal situation. And Kate, if I want a mission to do anything, I want people to understand life's not fair. If I could make it fair, I would make it fair. But I don't understand why some people are born into privilege and some people aren't. I don't understand why I was born into a family of addicts and some people are born with 2 parents and siblings that are healthy. I don't know. But if you focus your energy on trying to fix what you can't, you will stay stuck there. If you put your energy on trying to find the way out of the cards that you have been dealt, you will find a level and a life that was beyond your expectations. And I believe that in my bones because that's my story.
One of the things that comes to mind is, first of all, Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
That's not how exactly, but yes, that concept of sometimes those things make you dig down deep, and that's what happened for you. Like you said, with your husband's dental practice.
Yeah.
That might have never happened if you didn't have these floods and a tornado. I mean, that sounds
it never would have happened. Without those, we never would have advanced to the level we advanced. It would never have happened.
So a message, and I want you to speak to the listener too. But in the midst of that, of course, it doesn't feel good. I mean, I've had some stressful situations just recently, and then the outcomes, like you said, they never would have happened without coming through those hardships. And you've done that personally. And like you said, whose mother didn't say life isn't fair? I don't know. Maybe your mother was so bad she didn't even say that. But then, of course, when you think about it, we're still blessed. If you're living in the US or any developed country, we still are we're on the good side of the unfair part. But how do you use that? Let's talk to the listeners and say, okay, what can they learn about their own ability to be resilient and make things better through hardship?
Yeah, I think probably all 9 steps of the formula are incredibly important. But I'm so fascinated by the first step that I'm launching a whole book just on it through Sound Wisdom. And that the first step in the formula is a relentless vision. And I am fascinated by, and I wish that I had learned younger, how what you focus on expands. I spent the first 36 years of my life completely focused on addicts and what I was doing wrong to put me in a situation like that. And that held me back. When I shifted my mindset and started to focus on a dream, your mind is so powerful. It will find answers when you don't think things are possible. I mean, I was broke, living in a basement, widowed, heavily in debt, no idea how I was going to get out of that situation. But I cast a vision, and I just focused on that vision every day. And my mind found a way to get there. And so I really, really believe that that's where you've got to begin. You've got to begin by deciding what it is that you want. And it doesn't have to be a big vision. I mean, my very first vision was I just didn't want to be in debt, and I didn't want to be sad. And that's all I focused on every day was I didn't want to be sad, and I didn't want to be in debt. And then when I accomplished those things, I cast another vision. But we don't have to know how. We just have to know what we want. And a vision isn't static. You can change it. You can advance it. I mean, I'm in a period of my life, I want very different things than what I wanted even 15 years ago. But we have really undervalued the power of the mind and what you feed it.
And you definitely emphasized that in your book. And I totally agree. What you focus on gets bigger. It brings in the powers of the universe that we don't understand. And I'm a person, I've had some excellent guests on mindset. I'm a person who really has to work on that. Yeah. I've had people that come on that say, oh, I'm just a glass half girl kind of girl, glass half full kind of girl. Sorry. And unfortunately, I am not. I have to work on that. And it's so powerful. I mean, it makes you feel better. And the manifesting thing, I think there is definitely power in that. You can't just sit back and visualize what you want. But of course, that is your kind of your North Star, right? Where you head. And so, as I mentioned, we have a new book out called Uncopyable You, which is personal branding. So, and as I said, it's so similar to many of the concepts that you talk about. And the vision is huge. That's what keeps you going in the right direction. And I think it also makes you create yourself and what you represent intentionally, instead of just letting it happen to you, right? I think people just go with the flow. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. I love the fact that you said you've got to work on it. I just don't blame. I'm a glass half full kind of girl. I mean, I wouldn't survive if I wasn't a glass half full kind of girl. But I've got to work on my mindset every day because I may be a glass half full, but the voices in my head are very negative. They don't think a whole lot of Meredith Elliott Powell. And so I have to work on that vision every day. And so if you were home with me here in the morning, you would see the very first thing I do is I read my vision. I read it again at lunchtime, and I read it again before I shut my office down at night. And the reason is because I'm training my brain to find opportunity. And I've got to work at it just like I work at getting in shape, just like I work at my marriage, just like I work at my friendships and my business. I have to invest the time to do that. It's very, very important.
Well, and there's a key point for anybody listening is that you really do have to focus on this, make it intentional. And if you don't know Meredith, I'm going to put a lot of information below about where you can find her, learn more about her. And of course, but if you don't know Meredith, you might not realize she seems and appears and is so confident. It's encouraging for me to hear that you have those negative voices because I mentioned you're a CPAE, which is the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame. That is a very big deal. I think they only give 5 of those out every year, and I'm blessed to know quite a few of them. In fact, I was just George Walther. We just had dinner with him Sunday night. He was coming through town, and he's long retired now and traveling the world. But just anybody who is a CPAE is a master at speaking and presenting themselves. And Diane DeResta is another person I interviewed from NSA, and she had an interesting way of putting it. She said, you don't have to be confident to appear confident. So I think you are definitely higher on the confidence scale, but you still have to deal with those negative voices. But other than really just staying tuned into your vision every day and making it intentional and focusing on that, are there other things that you can recommend to the listeners? I'm sure there's a long list.
There's so much. Probably my favorite strategy of all the 9 ranks right up there is the strategy number 2 of conditioning yourself for change. I learned that from the U.S. military, and the U.S. military has a great mantra called "Embrace the Suck." And that's the idea is that I think that we have to get ourselves in shape for change. And the way you get yourself in shape for change is you think about change. You think about how your business is changing, how your life is changing. We take this into the personal life. When my husband got ready to retire, all my girlfriends were all about the same age. And they're like, how are you going to handle that? And I'm 10 years younger than my husband. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, he's going to be under your feet all the time and you're still working. I said, oh, no, he's not. I said, when he decided he was going to retire 2 years before that, I joined a country club and we picked our golf game back up. We joined the sporting clays club where he shoots sporting clays all the time. We joined 2 tennis clubs. I said, I basically got ready for my husband to retire. I put him in summer camp. And so my husband is never here. But my point of it is I knew the change was coming. I knew our parents were aging. I knew our kids were going to college. I knew blah, 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 blah. You have to get ready for it. And so think about the fact that now, does that mean that every change is coming I'm ready for? No. Like sometimes bad things happen or opportunities arise or things. But if you are in better shape for change, you're flexible to change and you feel like you're controlling the future rather than allowing the future to control you. You talk about building your confidence. If you're in shape for changes that are coming, then you're like, you don't like them all the time. We've had some really tough changes. We've got to think about selling the house eventually. Those are things that you love, but I have a contract ending with a really big client. It'll be significant income gone from my business. You have to plan for that. Think about that, embrace it and get ready for it.
One thing that comes to mind when you say that is, yes, you don't know what the exact changes will be. Now you've had some that you knew were coming, your husband's retirement, which it sounds great. I love the part about the daycare.
I'm trying to put him in camp.
Oh, the summer camp. Yeah. And picking up your golf game and doing all those things that you knew what was coming. And so you can wrap your head around that and decide how you want to approach it. But then when all the things happen that you don't expect, you're more ready for that. And how, like you said, to be flexible.
Yeah.
So those are great points. And the listeners of this podcast, many are in sales. But many of them are in sales and don't think that they're in sales because we're all in sales, right?
Everybody's in sales.
So all of the things that you're talking about, whether you have sales goals or business goals, I know that you help businesses grow. business growth strategist. These all apply. And like you said, they mesh with your personal life too. I loved some of your stories. Bush Beans. That comes to mind as a company that's been really successful. And then you talked about Brooks Brothers, which are both BBs, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Brooks Brothers is a great story. When I started I was researching Brooks Brothers. They've been around since the 1800s. If you don't know Brooks Brothers, they were really the inventor of the men's suit. And it's a fascinating story. They made it through the Civil War nobody was buying suits. Men were dying at an alarming rate, but they started making uniforms for the Union Army. That's how they made it through. But they did make it through COVID. And I was just about to publish the book, and David called me from Sound Wisdom and said, "You must be so upset. They've declared bankruptcy." And I said, "I'm not upset." I said, "I never said that these companies would survive. I said that the companies who didn't follow the formula." And when you understand Brooks Brothers, they violated in the last 5 to 7 years, they violated two of the strategies, and they went bankrupt. And that's the way it is.
So which can you tell?
Yeah, I can easily tell you.
You need to get the book because there's so many great examples, but which of the two formula strategies did they not adhere to?
Yeah. So for all you salespeople out there, I use the condition yourself for change with my clients all the time. I mean, it's one of my best sales tools. But they were sold to a public company and they started buying real estate. They heavily invested in their store. Well, if you go through the condition yourself for change exercise, you would have seen, anybody in retail, that the majority of people were buying online far more than they were buying in a brick and mortar store. But they refused to listen to that, and they continued to invest in brick and mortar. And then COVID hit, and they were so far behind in the model. Then one of my favorite strategies, again, for sales is a story about Procter & Gamble. But it's about listening to your customer, that in the face of uncertainty, when you think budgets tighten, it's actually the best time to sell. And Brooks Brothers customers were telling them that in order to save money, because they'd invested in all this brick and mortar store, they started cheapening the material they were making their famous Oxford shirt with. And their loyal customer base was telling them, "That's why we buy from you. That's why we stay with you. It is the Oxford shirt is the reason we buy this and the tie and the shoes." And they didn't listen to their customer, and they kept making it with a cheaper fabric, and they eventually lost their loyal base.
Well, and we all think that the customers want a cheaper price.
They don't.
Customers, it depends. We call your ideal target market your moose. And there's a big picture of moose back behind me.
Yeah.
And knowing your moose and what they want is just absolutely critical. It's as critical as all the things you're talking about. And yeah, for them to, number one, not get on the online bandwagon. I don't think you have to have a crystal ball to know that has to be part of your strategy now. But also assuming their customers wanted to pay a cheaper price when that's the exact opposite. They wanted something that was special, valuable.
Yeah. It's what I love about the marketplace. One thing I love about being in sales is people think that it's difficult. It isn't. If you listen to the marketplace and you listen to your customer, the path will be revealed to you, but you have to do it consistently. I mean, when we use the skeptic tool for conditioning yourself for change, I use it with my clients every quarter because I want my clients to think about how the marketplace is shifting outside of their business, because that's where the opportunity is for me. Where their opportunities are and their challenges are, that's where there's more opportunity for me. And then listening to the customer. In the face of COVID, I had my best year on record as a speaker. And think about the fact that everything about my business blew up. I couldn't get on a plane. I couldn't talk to people. I certainly couldn't do a live event. But I just listened to what my customers needed, and they told me how to change my business. So all I did was listen.
So what changes did you make? I mean, I think I can guess, but how did you navigate that? And we only have about 8 minutes left, believe it or not. So
I'll just say it really, really quickly. The biggest thing is that every single pain point by customer, they didn't know how to motivate people in a virtual world. They didn't know how to sell virtually. They didn't know how to open markets internationally. Then it became opportunity. How now they could hire people based all over the country or all over the world. People didn't have to be in their offices. I mean, they kept telling me the topics they needed help on. And I just kept going out and making myself an expert in them. And it just led to one opportunity after another.
The pandemic did, of course, hurt so many businesses, but I'll tell you an example of one company that has thrived because of the pandemic, and that is Zoom.
That's true.
Before the pandemic, Zoom was around, but it was kind of an outlier, I would say. And now we all live half our lives on Zoom, I think. And it's become a miraculous tool, really, for people like you to, and everybody to communicate. So, and you have one other story. I'd like you to just talk a little bit about Bush Beans, because that's also such a fun story of having a brand and what the company stands for, and they stayed true to it.
Yeah, they say true to it through everything. I mean, the story of Bush Beans, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I won't go into much of it, but they are the example of all 9 strategies. You had a leader that had a really strong vision. They embraced the suck. They went through the Great Depression. They went through world wars. The strategy number 3 is about collaboration and how they got into the canning business and how they got into selling their goods in a store is a true story of collaboration. No, strategy number 4 is the values, and they never, ever, ever wavered off of their values, and they still don't. They still don't today. And their strategy number 5 about listening to the voice of the customer, and the story of Roll That Beautiful Bean footage based off their puppy dog and what a viral before viral was a term. They really invested in their people, in their community, and strengthened your team, build an unbelievable network, and have been a company that is shed fast and keep moving. They've really stayed on letting go of things that did not work for the company and finding new opportunities. So they're such a great story. And what I love about these companies that I put in the book is that sometimes business gets a bad name. And when you look at these businesses that have survived and thrived, it's because they have lived by doing the right things, doing right by their communities, right by their customers, right by their employees, and right by themselves. And made profit is not a dirty word. And they've grown in such a beautiful way. And I think that's kind of what I love about the capitalist marketplace is that I really do believe the good wins out. And to be around 250 years, you got to be doing the right thing.
Exactly. And the bad news is that we don't have time for that whole story. But what the good news is, you can go out and buy this book. You can buy this book, Thrive. And I'm showing it here. I love that cover too. Strategies to turn uncertainty to competitive advantage. And you put it so well when you say, this is capitalism. It's what keeps our country going. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think of the company Patagonia, that they have stayed so true to their values of being environmentally friendly. And the founder had a mission. They are now repairing clothes, all kinds of things that they're doing. And they're making a heck of a lot of money, but they're also staying true to their vision. And as I said, in our Uncopyable You branding book and your book, it all starts with vision.
Yeah. Yes, it absolutely positively does.
So go get the book Thrive. Check out Meredith Elliott Powell. And do you have any closing thoughts? You've given some great tips and tools. I love the fact that you check in with your vision multiple times a day. And that repetition, our brains need that. That's why we need you writing books, us writing books, for you to be on stage, helping people see these things with new eyes. So I did the talking. What would you close with? I'm
just going to close, but I want people to understand that success isn't logical. Success does not belong to the company with the most money, the person who is best educated, or anyone with the most luck. Success belongs to the organization that has a focus and has a plan. And what I can guarantee people is that if they follow the strategy and the formula, not because I am some motivational speaker, but because it's backed up by all of this research, that if you follow this plan, it will not only shift how you think about uncertainty, but it will turn all of your uncertainty into a major competitive advantage. Well, that sounds like a great closing thought and statement. So Meredith,
I want to thank you so much. I'm honored that you visited my podcast, and I love what you shared with my listeners. So thanks again, Meredith. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Sales, your source for secrets you can use to make more sales. Check the show notes for links and contact information. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please spread the word by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. You can always learn more by going to uncopyablesales.com/podcast. Until next time, go out and supercharge your sales like a true uncopyable rock star.